An Unexpected Future by A Series on AO3. Episode 13, Chapter 13. Peanut butter and marshmallow sandwiches for the soul. I'm going to get us out of here. Five promised through gritted teeth as he clutched his quantum physics book tightly enough for his knuckles to match Ben's pale face. I promise. Ben didn't say anything. He rarely did after his special training sessions with their father. Sometimes he was trembling. Sometimes his eyes wouldn't focus. This time he sat on Five's floor with Vanya, letting her rub awkward circles on his back. If anyone can do it, it's you, Vanya said, though the words were rote, empty. She said it before, and would say it again, but she didn't have the energy to actually believe it anymore. Where would we even go? Ben asked, bitterly voicing the thoughts they were all thinking. Their father's presence seemed to engulf the three of them, stretching far across the floor and up onto the wall. He wasn't actually there, but his presence still pressed in on all sides of them, reminding them that he was the one in control. He had the power and the money and the influence, and no matter where they ran, he would find them. It was suffocating. Suffocating. The space around Five shrunk smaller and smaller until Five was scrunched up against his knees without any space to breathe, wrists and ankles bound, and several dozen jumps past his limit. Five couldn't breathe, and yet he struggled to reach beyond, further and further. If he could just do one more jump. Five weaseled as he dropped 2 feet and his back hit the floor. Groaning, he blinked dumbly up at a ceiling and tried to shake off the throes of sleep. How embarrassing. He hadn't jumped in his sleep in years. Five sat up and rubbed his face, looking at the tight room around him. Despite its small size, it brought him some relief. He was in the future now, safe from Regnal for the first time in his life. Without Ben, or Vanya, or any of his other siblings. Five clenched his fists, a desperate longing clawing at his chest, tearing at his insides and threatening to rip him apart. He tried to look them up after he got back from school earlier. Now that his phone was set up properly, he could do things like look up on Bloogle. He looked up everything from their names and their numbers to their hero names and the Umbrella Academy. He even looked for his father and Grace and Pogo, but every single one of his searches were blocked. Knowing this was definitely the work of the principal, Five sent his first text. Five Hargreeves. You tampered with my phone. Principal Nedzu. Smiley face. Five had nearly thrown the phone across the room. Thanks to Nedzu's damn meddling, his insistent need to check up on his siblings continued to crawl under his skin. Apparently, blowing far enough to invade his dreams. What happened to them? Did they ever get free from their father? Did Five make it back in time? What did they look like? He wanted to know. He knew it was a bad idea, though. Part of him was scared, too. What if he saw what became of them? It would feel more real. Like maybe he'll end up falling before he even tried. Maybe everyone had the right idea by keeping him from looking up things. Either way, he wasn't going back to sleep anytime soon, so he pushed himself off his ass and teleported. First to the bathroom, and then to the kitchen. Five gathered a knife and a plate and was halfway to pulling down the peanut butter and marshmallows from the pantry when he flinched as the kitchen light flicked on. Oh, there you are, Yamada said, relief in his voice as he stepped into the light and put in his hearing aids. Shoda said he heard something from your room, but then you weren't there. Gave me a bit of a scare. Ah, right. Teleporting around the apartment probably would sound weird to Aizawa. And since Five was used to using as little light as possible, it'll be pretty hard for Yamada to investigate, given what he could and couldn't hear. Sorry. Five said hoarsely, dispositing his haul on the counter before returning for the bread. I'm fine, as you can see. You can go back to bed. Nah, I'm good. What are you making? Five shot him a deadpan look with a raised eyebrow, scooping out a healthy amount of peanut butter before slathering it over a slice of bread. He followed it up by dumping a handful of marshmallows on top of the peanut butter and closing the sandwich with a second slice of bread. Huh, I gotta say, I haven't seen that combination before. Looks good, though. Five didn't answer, opting for taking a bite of a snack instead. The texture wasn't quite right. The peanut butter was crunchy, and the bread was thicker, but it still managed to taste like home. He wasn't going to cry again, but he did savor his next bite. I'm gonna join you, Yamada declared, saltering right next to Five, and started making his own peanut butter and marshmallow sandwich. For a moment, neither of them said anything, and Five was allowed to eat in peace. Do you want to talk about it? Yamada asked, watching Five out of the corner of his eyes. About what? Five said moodily, around his sandwich. Any of it. Yamada shrugged. All of it? Whatever happened earlier? What just happened now? I don't know, he declared. Okay. Five waited a beat, his frown growing, before blurting out. I just don't get how strong they all are. None of them have prior training, right? Who? Showed his class? The one I observed earlier. Yamada held his chin as he thought. Some of them have. Todoroki's the kid of the number 2 hero and probably has been training with him for quite a while. Yaozu and Ida both have some prior training experience too. And Ojo was the top of his level with his martial arts class when he applied for UA. But nothing for real combat. Five pressed. Aizawa said it wasn't legal for people under 15. And he'd be right. Yamada said, taking a bite of a sandwich, eyebrows pinched for a second, before shrugging and taking a second bite. Honestly, Shoda and I think that 15 is still too young. But not like we can change how heroics is taught across the country overnight. We just try to make sure the kids that come into our care are prepared for what they're signing up for by the end of their time at UA. Which makes sense. Five said, nodding along. But that doesn't explain how they're good with their quirks. Their quirks were just as strong, if not stronger, as any of ours at the academy. And supposedly, they weren't supposed to be using them until now? What gives? Yamada hummed, thoughtfully. Well, there's the theory that quirks have been getting stronger since they first appeared, since they started mixing and matching with each other. So it wouldn't be all that surprising that the quirk average here was stronger than what you're used to. Five pouted, and he couldn't deny it this time because Yamada noticed and laughed at him, tapping Five's nose with his finger. Don't worry, Cupcake, you're still plenty special. You were amongst the first, after all. And even nowadays, teleportation quirks are pretty rare, let alone one with a time travel component. Five hated that actually did make him feel better. So, what's Nedzu's deal then? Now, isn't that a mystery for the ages? Yamada said, shivering. Long story short, he's one of the smartest sentient beings alive, and we're very lucky. He wants to use his intelligence for good. Five could have guessed that much. He implied that he was experimented on. Yamada's eyes widened. They looked magnified by his glasses. He told you about that. He rubbed the back of his neck. He never talked about it to me before, but it was a big story at the time. Animals with quirks are rare, but they do happen. And Nedzu was a result from a lab experimentation on animals with quirks. It raised a lot of ethical dilemmas about who and what counted as a person. Nedzu actually changed a few laws before settling down as a principal. Interesting. Five said, finishing a sandwich. I know a talking animal back in my time too. He doesn't have a quirk though. My father made him that way through science, which is probably even less ethical now that I think about it. If that sort of thing's a big deal, that explained why he wasn't let out of the grounds. Your father experimented on animals? Yamada asked, somehow still surprised. Five scoffed. Why wouldn't he? First you make a sentient monkey, your butler, and then you buy a bunch of kids and run experiments on them until they're heroes. Logical process. Five could feel the bitterness seeping into his words. Part of him felt a little bad for lashing out at Yamada, when he'd only been kind to Five so far. But Five was so angry. Regno was lucky that Five wasn't in the same time as him, because Five couldn't promise he wouldn't just pick up an axe and be done with him. Consequences be damned. But Regno wasn't here, and Five felt just as bloodthirsty with no outlet. A hand was placed on Five's opposite shoulder, and he barely had time to register that fact before he was pulled into a hug. Five froze. He'd never been physically affectionate, but that wasn't by choice. He and his siblings were constantly scolded for showing weakness like wanting physical comfort. They've all denied it at one point or another, some more than others. But Five was always striving to prove himself, to show that he was better than his siblings, just as valuable as Luther or Ben. And he closed himself off much more than anyone else, save Diego. Aside from the occasional hug from Vanya, only Claus had the galls to hug and touch him regularly. Five would never admit it, but he really enjoyed when Claus did that. Yamada wasn't Claus, but Five found himself relaxing into the hug anyways, leaning against Yamada with his arms at his side, forehead resting against the man's chest. Keeping his tone surprisingly light, Yamada declared, "You know, I really hate your dad." Five snorted. "And I have the feeling that what you've said so far hasn't even scratched the surface of what you've been through." Yamada ran his hand through Five's hair, and Five couldn't help but be reminded of the times when Grace had done the same. "Part of me doesn't want to send you back." That admission hurt, because the second it was spoken, Five realized that there was a part of him that didn't want to go back either. And that idea was so much scarier than facing his father. Five pushed himself away from Yamada. "My siblings are still back there." Five couldn't bring himself to look at Yamada, but Yamada's voice sounded fond as he said, "I know. I wouldn't dream of keeping you here, but I hate the idea of sending you back into a dangerous situation on your own." Five took a deep breath and raised his head, staring down the hall that led to Aizawa and Yamada's room. Aizawa said that maybe I was meant to be here, that maybe I could learn some sort of skill or tool I could bring back to help my family. Yeah, should have said that. Well, not all of it, I've admitted, but that's what I took from it. I mean, Nedzu's training my quirk and is having me continue my education, so he seems to be at the same mind on that front. Huh. Well, I was thinking of having a conversation with Nedzu about what we could do to help on our end anyways. It wouldn't hurt to bring up the idea. I was gonna do it anyways. Five gave a sly grin. I mean, could any of you stop me from learning things I shouldn't? Brat. Yamada went to ruffle Five's hair again, but Five teleported just out of his reach and playfully stuck his tongue out at him. All right, point proven," Yamada said, placing his hand on his hip. "I do have a question for you, though." What does it mean to be a hero?" Five furrowed his brows, not really sure what Yamada was getting at. "Like the definition of hero?" "Sure, just give it your best guess." Frowning, Five said, "It's someone with powers saving someone in trouble from an outside threat." Yamada hummed. "That's certainly one way of putting it." "One way?" "Yeah, I've heard as many definitions of it as there are people. It's interesting. You should ask your classmates about it sometime. Their answers might surprise you, as might the reason they decided they wanted to become heroes." Five raised an eyebrow. What, are you giving me homework? Yamada laughed. Yup, basically, but that's a problem for future you. For now, are you feeling any better? Five blinked, looking at his hands in surprise as he realized he did feel better than when he woke up. Yes. Good. Yamada stepped forward and patted Five on the shoulder. How about we both try and get some more sleep? We both have school in the morning after all. Five nodded, letting Yamada lead him back to his room. He wasn't going to stay here. That wasn't an option. But he could use what he learned here to make sure that he and his siblings would find a way out. He already proven that escape was possible. He just needed to make sure that he could find a way to keep his siblings safe too. Okay, so my theory about Nedzu stays the same, but I want to talk a little bit, some of the notes that I want to talk about is Yamada, Five and his siblings, and how they're going to get out of the sticky situation that they're in. And I also want to talk about my cat. First, I'm going to talk about my cat. So, mainly I'm talking about my cat first, because if you heard this, ow, that is my finger. That is my cat. I love you. No, don't do that. Here, I'm putting it down. There you go. You can sit by the window again. I have the window open. It's raining. I have a screen. Don't worry. He's not going to, jump out or something. I would be worried. That is a pretty downfall. And the dog is out there. And look, I'm not worried about the dog hurting Storm anymore. I'm worried about Storm hurting the dog. Okay? Because they could play. There's moments where they're like laying down, they're cuddling, they're nice. And all of a sudden, the cat gets frustrated and no longer wants to be doing that. Gets up, tries to leave. The dog doesn't want the cat to leave. The dog gets the cat. It's like, no, you stay. And the cat gets angry, then scratches the dog. And then yeah. So we could have them be with each other, but it has to be supervised. And I'm sorry if this cat falls out the window. I'll jump for the cat. Yeah. Don't look at me like that. I'll jump for you. It's not like you'll do the same. You wouldn't. I know you. Goddamn cat. Actually, I think you probably would. Would you? Would you jump out the window for me? Would you jump out the window for me? Would you? Stop slapping me. But yeah, so if you heard disruptions in the background, it's Storm. I promise you, it's Storm. There's literally nobody else home. It is Storm. But I want to talk about first Yamada. So I've noticed that this fanfic is very Yamada parent-centric. So normally we would have moments like this with the adopted child. Normally we would have this with what's it called? With Aizawa, right? That's the norm. I'm not saying I don't like this. I really like Yamada being the more parental one, the more centric. I don't know if we're gonna get some. That is my hair. Stop eating my hair. My hair is blue. If you eat my hair, you're gonna turn blue, and you're gonna be blue, and you're gonna have pronouns. Stop. Okay, but as I was saying, as he bites my hair, stop it. Okay, so as I was saying, Jesus Christ, stop! You're digging into my thingy. So as I was saying, I keep saying as I was saying, but obviously this is a new environment because normally Yamada isn't like the big parental one. It's Aizawa. Like, don't get me wrong, sometimes Yamada is the one that's better with kids, but Aizawa tends to be like the quote unquote favorite one. If you get what I mean, you're tingling yourself with my hair. Stop it. No, get over here. No, you're losing chair top privileges. Go sit by the window again. Jesus Christ. Beans on rice. Don't do that. If you charge at the window, you will hurt yourself. That's what I thought. Okay, but yeah, so Yamada-centric. And then I want to talk about Five. Specifically, Five and him getting out of that situation. So, what do I think is going to happen in the future and Five? I really, really hope that this ends with Five going back in time, getting all his siblings, and then going back in time. Please and thank you. I would love that. I would very much love that. That would be very appreciated. Please and thank you. Please let that be the thing. Let that be where he goes back, he saves them, and he comes back to the future with his siblings. Can he do that? Yes, he's done it before. Season 2, in the beginning of Season 2, he's done it. So, Exactly. I never finished season 2, so. Also, someone informed me that in season 3, um, a certain character becomes trans. What was her name? Victor, I think is what their name changes to. So, for now, since it seems like this is before the character realizes, are we referring to as Vanya? Only because it will get confusing in my head to be switching it over constantly when I'm reading out loud and stuff. And to keep with coherency. Hopefully this author realized that too. When was this posted? When was this posted? Oh, 2022 and 2020. Yeah, that was before it was realized and stuff. So I think that's before season 3 too. So yeah. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water. No, don't go on my tablet. Stop it. You're gonna end the recording and delete it again. Control C is my best friend. Drink water, take your meds. Oh, it's raining. Hold up. I don't know if you could hear it. Can you hear that? Hopefully you can hear that. Otherwise, it's just gonna be quiet. It's gonna be weird. But as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.